If the whole concept of messaging for your coaching business feels confusing and overwhelming, then stay tuned. I'm going to be sharing a bunch of tips for how you can perfect your messaging so you can get more clients and grow your coaching business. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help health, life and spiritual coaches get more clients so they can generate more income and live their most aligned life. And today on the show, we're talking all about messaging. So I think this is quite an interesting topic to dive into. I'm going to explain what messaging actually is and why it is really quite important when it comes to building a successful coaching business. I think this is something that is often overlooked or missed out, and it can be quite an abstract concept, and I'm going to try and make it a bit more tangible for you guys today. It's also a huge topic, and actually I could write an entire course on this. I do actually cover it to some degree in my course, The Unboxed Guide to Niche and Messaging, which you're very welcome to check out. But I'm going to try and give you some just really practical things that you can take away that help you perfect what it is that you're saying in your messaging so that it resonates more with people, and just to give you some really good things that you can go away with. And like I say, messaging is so abstract, I think, because it covers quite a few different other areas. I'm going to try and explain what I mean by that in a sec, but yeah, it's a bit of a chunky one, and I'm going to try and make it a bit more tangible. We'll see how we get on. Let's go for it. So, what is messaging? I feel, for me, that messaging is how we are taking what we are getting clear on in terms of our niche, who it is that we help, how we help them, what we stand for, our values, which are all the important things we're going to come back to, and communicate that with people through various different mediums of our marketing. So our messaging can come into play in our sales copy, in the copy that we have on our website, in what we say in videos, in content, in podcasts, what we cover in signature talks that we might give. Like, it comes into so many different areas, which again, I think is what makes it slightly more difficult to pin down. But that's what I hope I'm going to be able to give you today, is just a way to pin down some of this so that you can get that more compelling messaging that can really, really help you get more clients and grow your business. So that's kind of what messaging is. Like I say, it is really the communication piece. And to get that piece in place, we need to have a degree of clarity around those questions. And I think the key things that I will be asking myself right now, and just to say as well, I am very much going through this process for myself with my own business right now. I feel like I know, all of the things that I stand for and what I'm about, but I want to hone the way that I communicate that so that it's clearer and more compelling for people when they intersect with it. So I'm very much in the same boat as you guys. I'm very much in the process. So I think the things that you want to think about, the questions you want to ask yourself that might be helpful around clarifying things before you start looking at the messaging piece is, who do I help? How do I help them? Like, what problems am I solving for them? What aspirations am I helping them achieve? Or what is the transformation or shift that we create together? How do I do that? Like, what are the ways in which I do that? What makes me different from the ways that other people do that? Is a really good question. And what are the values that I have that underpin the way that I work and what I do? I think those are 5 key questions that you can be asking yourself to get a little bit of clarity around your business. This is where the lines get a bit blurred around niche and messaging, because they're very, very similar and they're kind of connected. So those are some things that you want to be asking yourself around. You might also want to ask yourself questions about, like, what's your mission and what's your own story or journey been like as well. And I think if you can pin down those, like, that's 7 things that I've mentioned there, if you can pin those things down and answer those questions, that's going to give you a really great basis for what you want to communicate with people through your messaging. So once we've kind of got that clarity around those things, and just a quick note on clarity, I really, really struggled with clarity around my niche for a long, long time. And my guiding principle when it comes to niche is that you can have a broader niche, a broader headline, a broader umbrella. However, you must get clearer and more specific the closer to the sale that you get. So I always found the idea, like if I was just here and I was like, I just help health coaches with their content marketing, I would want to fucking die because I would be so bored. Like, I would be so bored if all I was talking about was how to do content marketing for health coaches. But that would be a really, really, like, that would be a pretty good narrow niche. But I personally would like be fed up. I wouldn't enjoy that. So my kind of umbrella, kind of broad kind of niche is that I help health and life coaches grow their businesses. It's very broad. There's lots of stuff that goes on under that. But then beneath that, I have got specific offers that address specific problems that have their own specific, if you like, niche. And in all honesty, actually knowing the problems and the aspirations that you are helping people with is better than having like a quote unquote niche. But you know, everyone's business is going to be slightly different, but I find it better to have that understanding beneath like that overarching kind of niche. So we've dived into a little bit of niche stuff there. Having the answers to those questions is going to be really, really helpful when it comes to the messaging side of it. And then you want to think about, where is this messaging needing to show up in my business? Because you want it to be consistent across all these different places. Now, for me, I think the key places where your messaging really comes into play is your website, your sales copy, and that can be sales emails, it can be sales, posts on Instagram, and then it's your content. And I think those three things, I mean, yes, there's going to be other places. There's going to be the conversations that you have with people, the sales conversations. There's going to be presentations you do, networking and stuff. So it's going to come into lots of places. But I think if you can focus on those three things, your website, your content marketing, and your sales copy, those are the three places where you want to be getting that messaging really honed. So we've got some questions that we've answered. So we've got that kind of a bit of clarity. It doesn't have to be perfect clarity. Sometimes that clarity will evolve over time, and that's okay. Just to say, please don't let like the lack of clarity stop you from moving forward. I would rather you move forward not feeling perfectly clear, because often the clarity comes the further down the road you get. So that's another thing as well. So we've looked at those questions. We know where our messaging is generally mostly going to be kind of employed and communicated. And then what we want to do is we want to look back at the answers to those questions, and we want to pull out 3 to 7, I would say, depending on where you're at with your business, what you've got going on, what feels good to you, the different aspects of what it is that you want to say. And I want you to pull out 3 to 7 key messages about you and your business that you would want people to know. Like if you were meeting someone from the first time, this is not the same as like an elevator pitch, but if you were meeting someone for the first time and you wanted to tell them something about your business and have them go away like really understanding what you're about and what you stand for and all that kind of thing, what 3 to 7 things would you be telling them? And if you can identify what those are, that can be really, really powerful in terms of just honing and perfecting that message. Because when you've got that number to focus on, you're not doing 10 or 20 different things you're trying to tell people at once. You're focusing on that 3 to 7 key things that you want people to know. And that can be a mixture of the things that we've talked about. So that can be like the problems that you solve for people and the aspirations you help them achieve. It could be the transformation that you're talking about in one of those 3 to 7 things. It could be, the reason why you're different. And I would encourage you to include one of the things in there is the reason why you're different. It could be like the outcomes that you help for people, like the transformation. Like really think about what out of those questions that I've just suggested you answer really helps communicate the soul of what you and your business are about. And I think it's about getting that kind of rounded experience of what your business is about in those 3 to 7 things and identifying what they are. So I am very much in the process of this for my business, but just to give you a bit of a flavour for what this looks like for me, I think what I've identified is I help health and life coaches. That's the most simplest thing. I'm business to consumer. I'm health and life coaches, spiritual coaches. That's who I help. I help them get more clients. I help you guys get more clients. I help you with your marketing. There's a strong angle to what I do that is around content marketing that is non-social media based. There's a strong element to what I do, which is about creating a cozy business that is not kind of just focused on becoming this 6-7 figure empire. I think that's quite a strong element of what I am about. I think there's this thing about being fun and experimental in your business that is as a thread that goes through my work. And I think there's a big part of my business which is about allowing you to live a slower, more considered, more fulfilled life. those are the kind of things that I would love for people to really pick up from what I do. Now, hopefully, and I mean, I'd love you guys to tell me actually, leave me a comment or pop me a DM on Instagram, that is coming through from what I do already. But what would happen if you took those 3 to 7 things and you started to focus on them in your content, making sure that they're mentioned in your sales copy, that they're mentioned on your website, and you actually started repeating them, not like repeating them exactly as they are, but you use those core messages in everything that you do, and you do that on a consistent basis. Because I think what the magic is around that with your message is, and also you want to make sure, I'm going to come on to that in a sec, about these being compelling things and that things that help you stand out, but I'm going to loop back around to that one. But when you have that clarity on what those things are, and then you use them in all of those places that I've mentioned, your website, sales copy, content, and you repeat them, not like I say repeating them, as the same sentences every single time, but you are always coming back to them, you're returning to those things, you are mentioning them again, like the core tenets of what it is that you're about, and you come back to them. That is where you start to really communicate with people what it is that you're about and how you are different and how you can help them, and you're really getting those key messages put across. So if you can boil everything down to those 3 to 7 key messages and then repeat them in the key places where your message is being communicated, which, like I say, for me, website, sales copy, potentially emails and stuff, and your content, then that is going to really, really help people understand what you're about in a very clear way. Like I say, we don't really want to be going much above 7 because that's when things start to get a bit woolly. But I think 3 to 7 for me is like the kind of good range, depending on what you've got going on. Then we'll want to be thinking about the compelling nature of what it is that we're talking about. Because what we don't want to be saying is, the same as what every other coach in the world is saying. We don't want to be using language. And I mean, this is where we get into a little bit of like almost like copywriting kind of space. And I'm going to link to an episode of the show that I did all about how to improve your copywriting as a coach, because these are tips that I've taken from that are still like really applicable to the messaging side of things, because messaging and copywriting are one and the same in lots of spaces really, is to use real life examples in what it is that you're talking about. So you want to be using more in real life examples if you can, because that's going to make your messaging more compelling and more interesting and less like everybody else's stuff. So again, I'll share those examples from my business. I can definitely add in some more real life examples, but it's the kind of difference between saying like, yeah, you want to book more clients, or you want to book more clients without doing shit that you hate and doing icky DMs. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. It's like adding that extra dimension that makes your messaging a little bit more compelling and a bit less boring and a bit less like everybody else. Another big way that you can do this really simply is just talk in your own voice. I know that sounds like the most basic tip in the world, but so many of us like edit the way that we communicate because we think we need to be like more corporate. If you come from a background where you haven't been running a business since you left school, which let's face it is most of us, you will probably edit the way that you communicate what it is that you do, and you will make it, like, in all honesty, a bit boring. So we want to take that out and we want to add your voice. I swear in real life. It's a terrible habit, but I swear in real life. So I do that in my business because that's just who I am and it's how I talk. I don't do it for kicks. Like, I can remember someone, God love her, emailed us and was like, you're not cool for swearing. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I just what I do. It's expressive. I like the expressiveness of the language. But basically, you want to be bringing in some of those real life examples into your messaging and adding in your own unique tone of voice and making sure that it is unique to you. Now, yes, there's going to be other coaches out there who help people in a similar way, who do a similar thing, but no one else is you. And this is where in those 3 to 7 key messages that we're going to take and repeat to people, like in different versions of it, but we're going to keep on saying it and keep on touching on it and keep on returning to it in our copy, in our content, in our sales stuff. We want to just incorporate that true to us tone of voice and also those in real life examples, or else the message is just not going to be very compelling. Something else that we want to touch on is, and I've mentioned this, I think probably a couple of times in the show recently, because this is something again that's just in my mind, is what is it that we're standing for? I mean, that was one of the questions I asked before, but what is it that we're standing for? Like, what is the shared destination that we are taking people? Like, if you're a health coach, is your kind of vision for the people that you work with, we're all kind of going to this place where we can have fully functioning bodies into our 80s and 90s? Is that the place that you're taking people? Like, is that the end destination, this kind of longevity side of it? Like, what's the end destination? Like, for me and my business, I really feel like it's taking people to that point where they have a business that they really love being in. It's not a 6 or 7 figure empire, but that doesn't have to be, because actually they're living life on their own terms. They have got the freedom to do what it is that they want to do with their time, yet they're also helping people. That's the kind of place that I really want to, I feel like that's the place I'm taking people. I feel like that's the place where I am in now and where I'm just continuing to grow in. And I feel like that's where I'm taking people. And again, it's like, how am I communicating that in my business apart from just telling you guys right now? Like, how are you communicating all this stuff? And just coming back to it and making it really clear, like, the way that people interact with you and your website, your content, your sales copy, and your other sales content is not going to be like constant. It's going to be bitty. So you can repeat yourself. People are not going to get bored. Yes, you don't want to be repeating the exact same sentences, but saying the same key messages over and over and over again is what's going to help you get known for what it is that you do, for people to really recognize what makes you different, and for really actually resonating with you and what it is that you're saying. So when it comes to messaging, just looking at those simple things, and like I say, messaging can be a huge topic in business, very much linked with your copywriting, with your niche, with all sorts of different elements. But what I tend to find with my clients and people that I support in my business is that the messaging just isn't consistent enough. It's not strong or compelling enough, and it's just a bit woolly and just doesn't really, like, it's not specific enough in those ways. So if I could have you guys change anything, it's really about getting that little bit of those 3 to 7 key messages. And like I say, I mean, there's no set number really, but I think beyond 7, it kind of loses its punch. Lower than 3, it doesn't do anything. Most people are probably going to be 5 to 7, but it just depends on how broad your niche is, I think, really. But those are some things to consider when it comes to messaging and being able to perfect that messaging and really adequately communicate what it is that you're about. Because like I say, if you're not communicating these things well and it's not landing with people, this is all about, when you're saying stuff and sharing stuff in written word, with your voice or however, like, is it actually like getting in there with your potential clients? Like, is it sitting? Is it being remembered? Is it absorbing? And often what you will find is that people are actually getting it. Like, I tend to find that most people know what I'm about. If they consume any of my content, there's enough references to what I'm about and what it is that I share in my content that it gets there. But imagine what would happen if you were even more clear and specific about what those things are. And again, so many things can kind of come from that. It can inform, what your lead magnet or freebies might be. Like, all sorts of stuff can be born from the clarity around those things. So it's a really interesting thing to dig into. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope it's given you lots of things to think about. Please do let me know if this has been a useful episode of the show. If you've got any more questions about messaging, hopefully this has given you something really solid and straightforward that you can go away and run with and try and see if this kind of helps you in terms of all these different areas of your business and really communicating that stuff with people. I would love to know. Let me know. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave me a thumbs up and like and subscribe. That would be amazing. I'd love any feedback you have for me on this episode of the show. Pop me a DM on Instagram. I'm at WholeheartedlyLaura. And I will see you next week, guys. Take care. Bye.